Scrolling through Facebook Marketplace, I stumbled across a listing for a vintage dining table at an unbelievable price. The solid wood table looked to be in great condition in the photos, and at only $50, this was a total steal. I immediately messaged the seller, a woman named Brandy, who didn't have much of a profile picture, and arranged a time to pick up the table from her house. When I pulled up to the address on a quiet suburban street the next evening, the house was dark except for a dim glow behind closed curtains. Unease prickled at me, but I pushed it aside and grabbed my flashlight. I was just here for the table. My knock elicited some violent barking before Brandy cracked the door open. She was younger than I expected, early 20s maybe, with stringy hair and sunken eyes. The stench of cigarettes wafted out. "You here for the table?" she rasped. I nodded. She led me through a filthy living room, smacking a snarling pit bull out of the way. In the cluttered dining room stood the table from the ad, a gorgeous dark wood piece that was clearly antique. I ran my hand along the ornate carvings. "It's beautiful," I breathed. $50, like we agreed. "Help me get it in your car," Brandy asked. Together, we carried the surprisingly heavy table outside and loaded it into my trunk. As I pulled the cash from my wallet, Brandy eyed it greedily, practically salivating. An uneasy feeling washed over me, but I brushed it off and headed home. I spent that weekend lovingly restoring the table, polishing it to a glossy shine. When my friends came over for dinner the following week, they were in awe. "You scored with this table," my friend Lara said. Hard to believe it was only $50. Something about her comment needled me, but I smothered my misgivings. A few nights later, I was startled awake by a bang outside. Peering through the curtains, I was shocked to see 2 police cars parked in front of my house. As I opened the door, an officer stepped forward flashing a badge. "Ma'am, we had a report of stolen goods at this address. Mind if we come in and take a look?" My cheeks flushed hot as I brought them inside. "There must be some mistake," I stammered as they made a beeline for the dining room. The officers examined the table, muttering to each other and pointing out markings on the underside. After a tense few minutes, the older cop turned to me with a grim expression. "I'm afraid this table was stolen from a historical museum in the next county over 3 weeks ago," he said. "Worth around $15,000. I felt dizzy with shock and disbelief as he explained I'd have to surrender the table for evidence. But how could Brandy have stolen and sold it for just $50? Had she used a fake Facebook profile? Clearly, I was just a pawn in her twisted game. Over the next few agonizing days, the whole story came out. Brandy was part of a theft ring targeting heirlooms to sell on Marketplace. She trawled for unsuspecting buyers like me to take the stolen goods. The police recovered some items, but said many had already been sold on. While I was cleared of any criminal charges, I was left shaken. I should have trusted my instincts when I saw that house and met Brandy. But I foolishly ignored all the warning signs. I'll never make a Marketplace purchase from someone's home again. You truly never know the origins of anything found online. I learned that lesson the hard way. When my ancient laptop finally died, I was thrilled to find a new MacBook listed on Facebook Marketplace for only $200. The seller, a woman named Karen, said her niece had gotten a new laptop for college and didn't need this one anymore. I couldn't believe my luck. We arranged a time for me to come take a look at it. Karen lived about 20 minutes away in a small house on a quiet street. She welcomed me in with a warm smile and chatty manner that immediately put me at ease. The MacBook sat on the kitchen table looking every bit as pristine as advertised. Karen said her niece had used it only a few times before switching laptops. Everything seemed normal. After inspecting the computer and verifying it worked properly, I paid Karen the $200 and left with my purse a bit lighter, but excitement mounting. I had just scored a fabulous deal. I spent that evening happily downloading software and files onto my new MacBook. The next morning, I opened it up to continue setting it up. But when I clicked onto Facebook, a profile other than mine loaded. The name at the top of the screen was Leanne Parks. Who was Leanne Parks? And why was she logged into this computer? I scrolled through Leanne's profile, perplexed. Had Karen's niece forgotten to log out of her own Facebook before selling the computer? That seemed careless. Out of curiosity, I searched for Leanne's name on Google. Several news articles popped up immediately using words that made my heart stop. Missing woman. Leanne had disappeared without a trace 4 days ago. Just one day before I'd bought this MacBook. Coincidence? It had to be, right? Nonetheless, I was gripped by a nameless dread. I logged out of Leanne's account and contacted Karen, asking her to explain the situation. She replied that she had no idea who Leanne was and accused me of trying to scam her. Thoroughly rattled now, I called the police department. They agreed the timing was suspicious and came to collect the MacBook as evidence. Forensics would need to sweep it for clues. For the next 2 weeks, I agonized over what role, if any, I might have unwittingly played in this woman's disappearance. When the police finally called with an update, what they shared made my blood turn to ice. Leanne had indeed gone missing shortly before I purchased her laptop on Facebook Marketplace. But the sickening revelation was that Karen was not a kindly stranger at all. She was Leanne's neighbor, and she was the prime suspect in Leanne's disappearance. The police now believed Karen had stolen Leanne's laptop and was using Facebook to quickly sell it and cover her tracks. She'd created a fake listing, lied about the backstory, then collected $200 from me, an unassuming buyer. Meanwhile, Leanne was likely dead, all traces of her wiped from the device I now possessed. I felt nauseous and violated, my hand shaking as I deleted the laptop's files and reinitialized it. I wanted no remnants of its sinister history, wished I could erase my knowledge just as easily. Of course, I never heard from Karen again. The police investigation was ongoing, but seemed to be going nowhere. Leanne's friends and family continued pleading for any information on her whereabouts. As for me, her laptop had long since been returned and wiped clean, but a residual unease lingered. My neighborhood would never look as safe. Facebook Marketplace never feel as innocent, because now I knew the strangers and deal seekers lurking there could be hiding the darkest of intentions. I was low on cash, but in need of some new furniture, so I turned to Facebook Marketplace to find deals. scrolling through the endless listings. One jumped out at me. A teak mid-century sofa set for only $100. The photos showed the cushions needed reupholstering, but the wood frame looked solid. I messaged the seller, an older man named Gerald, who lived just across town. We arranged a time for me to come see the set in person. The house was run down with overgrown landscaping, and Gerald himself had an unsettling, nervous energy about him. But he happily showed me the living room set, and I decided it was worth the price. I paid him cash on the spot and arranged for a pickup truck to come get it the next morning. When I arrived the next day, Gerald's mood had completely changed. He refused to let me take the furniture, claiming he had never agreed to sell it. Confused, I showed him our messaging thread as proof, but he grew increasingly angry and threatened to call the police. After some arguing, I gave up and left empty-handed, disturbed by his bizarre behavior. I considered leaving a bad review, but decided just to cut my losses and move on. A couple weeks later, I noticed the sofa set pop up for sale again on Marketplace, now listed by someone named Martha. The photos and price were the same. Martha replied explaining that she was Gerald's daughter and apologized for the previous incident. She said her father's condition had been declining, and he must have simply forgotten selling the set to me. I was skeptical, but she insisted I come take the furniture before he changed his mind again. Feeling uneasy, but not wanting to pass up the deal, I agreed. When I arrived at the house this time, a care nurse greeted me at the door. She took me upstairs to a bedroom where Gerald lay sleeping in a hospital bed, looking frail and delirious. The nurse said I was welcome to take the furniture, so I loaded up the truck and thanked her. As I drove away, though, I felt a growing sense of dread. Something seemed off about the whole situation. But I pushed that thought from my mind as I unloaded the sofa set into my apartment. Later that evening, I was browsing Marketplace again when a familiar posting caught my eye. Gerald's furniture. Again, the same price and photos. How could this be? Had the daughter relisted it? Anxious and confused, I reached out to Martha for an explanation. Her reply sent a chill down my spine. My father passed away 6 months ago. We sold the house shortly after. I'm not sure who you spoke with, but you need to stay away from there. Panicked, I told her exactly what had happened each time I went to the house. Her unease was palpable, even through text, as she informed me she would call the police. I thanked her, my hand shaking as I processed this horrifying realization. Whoever, or whatever, was in that house had tricked me twice into taking the furniture. I was overwhelmed with terror, thinking about having that set in my apartment. The next day, I donated it, too frightened to even post it for resale again. I never heard back from Martha about what the police discovered at the house. Part of me wishes I'd never known the truth, that I could sleep soundly without imagining who still dwells within those walls. One thing is certain, I will never buy anything off Facebook Marketplace again.